Franklin Planning and Zoning Board. The board meets every third Tuesday of the month to review proposals for changing the city's growth management plan or its comprehensive plan, its future land use map, zoning changes consistent with the comprehensive plan, and conditional use permits. The board is made up of 7 citizens appointed by the City Commission and is assisted by the staff of the Community and Economic Development Department and the City Attorney's Office. The meetings are divided into 2 parts. The first part is a public hearing where we expect to hear new applicants explain their request and receive comments from affected parties. The second part of the meeting is termed the general meeting and primarily consists of the board acting on recommendations from staff about the cases that came up in the prior month's meeting. This meeting is somewhat unique in that it is the first virtual Planning and Zoning Board meeting conducted entirely online and telephone. Despite this, we've made accommodations for everyone who wishes to participate to be heard. And to the public, we welcome your input for the public hearing portion of the meeting. We ask that all members of the public wait to call in until the agenda item of your interest is being discussed. You will see a phone number and an access code displayed on the live broadcast. Please be aware that each speaker will have 5 minutes to speak on any particular issue. We do ask that you be brief in your comments and that speakers avoid being repetitive. That is, if several people have pointed out traffic concerns, you won't need to state those same concerns, but the board would like to hear anything new that has been overlooked. This allows everyone to have an opportunity to provide input, and especially when there's a long agenda as we have this month. We thank you for being here, and I'll turn the meeting over to the chair, Ms. Stephanie Franklin.
And good morning to everyone out in the audience. And I first want to say to the staff, thank you. I know you've put in a lot of work to pull this meeting together, and it is appreciated. If you will be calling in, we will ask that you state your name and your address, and then we will recognize you so that you may begin speaking. If you have your puppies or your telephone in the room with you, you may want to scoot it out the door so that we can try to maintain our positions and move forward. Thank you everyone who's online, and with that, we will have our very first item.
Item number 1, proposed text amendment to the intergovernmental coordination element of the Lakeland Comprehensive Plan to update illustration 8-6, Lakeland Comprehensive Plan certification area. The applicant is the City of Lakeland, and this is a consideration of final decision.
Good morning. For the record, Matthew Lyons, Community and Economic Development. The proposed text amendment to the city's intergovernmental coordination element consists of the annual update to illustration 8-6, the city certification area, resulting from annexation activity and associated city and future land use amendments adopted during calendar year 2019. This illustration is updated by the city each year as part of its annual certification monitoring report associated with the city's comprehensive certification program. One site was annexed and assigned land use in 2019 during the reporting period, but was not added to the certification area. The area added was approximately 9.56 acres. And this amendment is classified as non-exempt in regard to the city's comprehensive plan certification. Under state law, this amendment is eligible for the state's expedited review process, under which the state land planning agency and other state regional review agencies may send the city comments during a 30-day review period required for the proposed amendment. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions from anyone on the board?
And Madam Chair, I would just add, for the record, Teresa Mayo, Community and Economic Development Department, that the area that was annexed is located in what is called the Green Swamp area of critical state concern. Any property within that special area that has that classification is not exempt or is exempt from our certification boundary. In other words, there's no expedited review process for comprehensive plan amendments outside of that boundary. So that's why we annexed area, but it didn't necessarily change the certification boundary because it cannot be included in that boundary.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa. So anyone else on this issue? Do we have any comments? Anyone from the board? Okay. Is there anyone from the public?
No, Madam Chair, no calls.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. With that, we will stand for a motion.
Move for approval.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Now we will have roll call. Ronald Roberts,
Here.
Lyle Phillipson,
Here.
Leanne Luntz. Here.
Let me just interject. If we redo that, I mean, it's a motion for approval. So,
This is-
you know,
Oh, we need to say aye. Aye. Aye or nay? Okay. Well, I'll start again, please. Ronald Roberts, please.
Aye.
Okay. Lyle Phillipson, please.
Aye.
Leanne Luntz, please. Aye. Glenn Higgins, please.
Aye.
Andrew Snyder, please.
Aye.
Savannah Knight, please. Aye. And Stephanie Franklin, myself, I say aye. With none opposed, it's unanimous consent. Thank you very much. We will move on to the second item, please.
Item number 2, conditional use to allow a preschool with a maximum enrollment of 104 students on property located at 220 Carlton Street. The owner is the Alliance for Independence Incorporated. The applicant is Thomas Bronner.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. For the record, Joshua Cheney with Community Economic Development. The subject property is located at 220 Carlton Street, which is approximately 800 feet east of South Florida Avenue at the intersection of South Hilltop Avenue and Carlton Street, which is just north of one of the Florida Holiness Campground dormitories. If you go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. The property is approximately 0.69 acres. It does have PUD zoning currently. The future land use is residential medium. Again, the applicant is Mr. Thomas Bronner, and the request is for a conditional use in order to allow a new preschool serving up to 104 children in between the ages of 2 and 5 years old. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Thank you.
Hold on, I'm sorry, for just one moment. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. For those who may not be familiar with the site, Christella, if you could just slowly go through a couple slides, please. Okay, and if you could go back now to the site plan, please. Go back several slides, please. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Bronner.
All right, am I coming through okay?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for doing this. I'm glad we could still have our meeting, even though with everything going on. So this is very cool. I'll keep this short and sweet. You know, Joshua mentioned this isn't our first time around for the board members that are with us. It's very similar to previous. It's a preschool with 104 students, as Joshua said. I'm just on 3 quick points. For any neighbors that are listening, one aspect of our proposal is that it is a conditional use, and we would be removing the planned unit development. So just to any neighbors listening, or concerned community members, that's a benefit to the neighborhood. And the reason for that is because it would significantly narrow the ability for a different type of business to come in to this location in the future. So if our proposal, from my understanding, if our proposal was approved, the plan unit development would be removed, the plan unit development zoning, and in replace of that would be a conditional use for our preschool. So the benefit to the neighborhood is that if we would plan to be around for quite some time, but if for whatever reason Alta Schoolhouse stopped operating, no other business could come in and just start operating without going through this exact process of conditional use. So you wouldn't have to be wary of other types of businesses that have tried to come to this location in the past that neighbors haven't wanted. So just wanted to give that information to those listening. Parking and traffic are the two main issues that I want to address quickly. So with parking, we're meeting all ratios and requirements via the land development code. So we are required to have one spot per 6 students and 1 spot per employee, and we are exceeding those currently, assuming that we get one of the allowable reductions for like installing bike racks and such. So with our current projections of 104 students, which is full disclosure, is potentially will be lowered in the months to come. We're working with our architect on that because side note, it all depends on square footage. With the amount of students depends on square footage through childcare licensing. So 35 square feet is needed per student of classroom space. So this doesn't include hallways or bathrooms or lobby. So that's what determines our maximum capacity, and that is going to be determined by the Department of Children and Families. And so we are getting with them to verify what they would license us for through some calculations. So with parking, we are extremely flexible. The site plan that is in front of you, we have told city staff that, for instance, we have the entry coming in on the right-hand side and then exiting out on Carleton. If it is more beneficial for traffic flow or for the neighborhood to reverse that and instead have the entrance at Carleton and the exit out on the right-hand side, we're completely willing to do that. We're flexible in that aspect. And like I said, we're meeting all of our ratios of parking to parking for our students and what the land development code says, we are meeting. With traffic, we're working on, with traffic. So unfortunately, when people, any neighbors listening, when you got a letter in the mail and you saw the word preschool, you immediately typically think a car line, because we're accustomed to car lines with elementary, middle, and high schools. So to clear the air and the record, we do not have car lines. So we are preschool, like Jonathan said, our students would be ages 2 to 5 years old. So car lines don't work. Parents are now required to park their car, and then they have to enter the lobby where they check in their child through an automated system. So it's a very quick process, but there is no car line that will be backing up into the neighborhood. And the reason there's not going to be a car line is because we have adequate parking, as well as the fact that unlike elementary and middle schools, we do not start at the same time. So students arrive at our school anytime between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. in the morning. That's a 2.5-hour window. And then they depart anytime between 2:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. That's a 3.5-hour window. So we are not having all 100 students come at 7 a.m. in the morning. They're completely sparsed out between a 2.5-hour window. The other aspect of this is that with preschool, it's not a full-time care provided. That is an option, but about 50% of parents elect to have part-time care, which is typically 3 days a week. So it will be a rarity where we have maximum capacity in our school, because we have on most days part-time students there. Therefore, they wouldn't be there, as well as absences and stuff like that. So those are the two main issues I wanted to address on. The last thing, and might just be a nice story to tell for the board, who's been sat through our first initial meeting with the previous location, is that we've been able to have at this location, at least personally, I've received 2 calls from neighbors requesting that we come to this location. Without getting into detail, they saw our proposal at a previous location which didn't work, and they were there to oppose a different use that was being proposed for this location that they did not want. And after seeing our proposal of a school, they found my cell phone number, I guess, and they gave me a call asking that they would love a daycare for this neighborhood. So we've specifically spoken to a few neighbors, like 3 or 4 that I know of, that live on the street. One's right next door and the other one's just down the street. They live on Carleton. They live on South Hill Avenue. But regardless, they've requested that we come to this neighborhood. So any weary neighbors, I hope that we're going to do everything we can to be an asset to the community. In my opinion, preschools are a benefit to the local neighborhood. They increase value. It's like the one type of business use that people typically are okay with or prefer to have in their neighborhood from a value standpoint. And we have lots of community outreach projects planned. So we hope we'll win you over in the future if this is approved. But just know that in our hearts, it's just our utmost goal is to be an asset to the local community and be good neighbors. So that's it.
Questions from the board members?
I have one, Stephanie.
Mr. Phillipson and Ms. Knight.
First of all, you say you're going to have staggered times. Is there any standard as far as who has to come at such and such a time? In other words, or is it just how it happens to fall with the parents who want to drop off, say, at 7 in the morning, and those may want to drop off at 8 or 8:30? Are they assigned specific times?
No, they are not assigned specific times. They typically elect. We have an option for morning care. So the typical the academic day starts at 9 o'clock, correct?
Yeah, right at 9.
Starts at 9 o'clock. So some parents will drop off between like the 8:30 and 9 a.m. window. However, a lot of parents start their jobs prior to that, and therefore they need morning care. So morning care is an electable option between 7 a.m. and that 8:30 a.m. And at that point, they're able to drop off at any time because it's not an academic day. It's more just more so daycare at that time. So it is a very flexible. It's not a scheduled drop-off time. It's a wide open.
Second question I have is, in looking at the pictures that you showed of the house and so forth, do you have plans to put playgrounds outside? And if so, have the neighbors been advised of that?
Yeah, so the play area is actually it's kind of a little difficult to see on the site plan, but it's in the top left-hand corner as well as in the very top middle of the playground. Yes, thank you for electing that. So the main play area would be in that top left-hand corner. There's an existing fence. Fences are required for childcare licensing. I think the existing fence is like 5 or 6 feet tall. Yeah, so it's a fenced area and located in the back, so off of the road, which is nice. And we do have a neighbor on lot 10, block B, that area right directly to the west. However, on the north, above the play area is actually a roundabout for the other neighborhood that no home is on. So it doesn't. It's in a good area, I guess, for a playground to have one on this location.
Okay, and if you find that one particular time slot is overloaded, is there anything that can be done about that if that causes a traffic congestion?
Yeah, completely. I'm trying to, yes. I mean, the short answer is yes. Things can be done to mitigate that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question about the parking counts. Is the on-street parking extra, or is that needed in your counts for the parking required?
The on-street parking is needed in order to meet the ratios required by the Land Development Code. The current street, when we've pulled up to the building, it doesn't have on-street parking currently. However, there's not really a curb, but there's a large area where you're already able to park your car. So it doesn't have technically on-street parking now, but when people have parked there in the past, they've parked parallel. There's a wide buffer there.
Excuse me, if I could interject, just to remind the board members, if you want to speak, please raise your hand in your webcam. I saw Ms. Knight raise her hand, and then please wait to be recognized. Ms. Knight?
Thank you. I live about a block and a half away from there. I don't know if that's okay to say, but I am very familiar with the property. My question is, in the front of those parking spaces on the corner of Hilltop and Carlton, I know there is an easement for parking. Is there going to be any sort of buffer of landscaping? And also, because it is quite a large parcel, is there going to be fencing around the total parcel and not just the play area? Thank you.
So there's currently fencing around the north and west perimeter. The only fencing that there is not currently is the south and the east. So we would have to fence in the playground from kind of where those dotted dashed lines are. So the whole parcel wouldn't be fenced, but a large majority of it would be fenced because there does need to be separation between the playground and the parking lot.
Are you going to be using the existing fencing? Because that fencing is, while it's very decorative, it's not necessarily very secure.
That is currently up for discussion. If it is able to be resecured and it meets childcare licensing requirements, then we will try to keep it, but we have a feeling that we will be required to put a new perimeter fence. And if that is the case, then we will be putting up a privacy fence, because the current fence is I believe it's wrought iron, but childcare licensing requires there to be, I believe, a 3 or a 4 inch, no more than a 3 or a 4 inch gap between the vertical fence posts, so that children's extremities can't get stuck between them. And so if the current fence doesn't meet it, we will be putting up a privacy fence that you're not able to even see through. And that's most likely what's going to occur.
And then can you speak to my landscaping questions on the corners? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, the landscaping, we've been in discussion with city staff very briefly about the necessity for there to be a buffer and some sort of knee wall. So yeah, there will be landscaping there. It will look pretty, and we're working with city staff to meet those requirements.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I see Matt Lyons' hand up.
Mr. Broder, my recollection was when you went through concept review, guess water utilities pointed out that the parking shown along Carlton Street would require the relocation of the underground wastewater line. Has that been determined, whether or not that parking is feasible? And if so, if that parking is removed, what would you do to address that?
Yeah, so it has not been determined if we are needing to move that. From my understanding, it was going to be something that during construction we would have to test to see how deep that water main line is underneath the ground, and if it's able to support the weight, then we can keep it, and if not, we'd have to move it. Currently, if assuming that we meet the land development code reduction in parking requirements for saving plants and for saving trees and having bike racks and other things, we currently have 4 spots. At our 104 number, we currently have 4 spots. If we meet the 20% reduction, we have 4 spots extra right now. That could be removed and we would still be meeting land development code. If that number of maximum students ends up being lower, which in the coming month we will be determining if that's the case, it's looking like that is going to be the case, then that would shed off another 1 or 2 parking spots required for us as well. And so the need for those 6 actually might be completely non-existent at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, Mr. Roberts raised his hand earlier.
Okay, Mr. Roberts?
My question had to do with the number of staffing you anticipate.
Yes.
And the potential for how that would impact the total parking situation.
So we're required to have a parking spot per employee, which is factored into our ratios and which we are currently meeting. We would have 8 staff members. We have 4 classrooms, and there would be 2 teachers per classroom, totaling 8 teachers. Staff is determined by childcare licensing ratios. So depending on the age of the child, depends on the amount of children per teacher that we are allotted, and therefore, based upon the age groups that we're aspiring to have, we would have 8 staff members. That is assuming lower than normal ratios. So there's a possibility we might have 7 staff. However, we're being more on the conservative side. So that we're assuming 8. Any other questions?
Okay. Anyone from the public?
Madam Chair, I have Erin Bodenhorn and Sharon Sobrian on the line for this item. Erin, if you'd like to go first, you can state your name and address. Erin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm actually on for the Orlando Health item, not this item.
Okay. My apologies.
All right. No one else?
Let me see. Sharon? Are you there?
I'm on for Orlando Health as well.
Okay. My apologies. No one else, Madam Chair.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. If there's no other questions from the board, we will look at this next month. Thank you very much.
It's just to be noted, yes, this is going to be another public hearing next month, just because of the nature of the proceedings we're dealing with, just to provide ample opportunity for public participation. But that doesn't preclude you from taking final action after the public hearing at the next month's meeting.
Ask a question.
Yes.
So over the next month, you all are going to try, and it seems to me there's several things here that this gentleman talked about, that we may do this, we may do that. Is some of that going to be more finalized by next month? So some of the certain parameters will be set, where there might be maximum number that can drop children off at a certain time. The fencing issues is all, and the water main issues that you were talking about. Are those the things that you all are, and they are going to be addressing over the next month?
Yes, that's correct. And like I stated before, this proposal is on the very conservative side. So what I can assure you is that we are not going to come next month and it's going to be more parking or more students. If anything, and more than likely, it is going to be less. Not by a large amount, but most likely by a few spots. And yes, the fencing and things of that nature will be addressed.
Yeah, and I'm also concerned there should be certain parameters within which your drop-off and your pickup are going to be, so you don't wind up with an overload at any one time. I know from having grandchildren at preschool, there's certain times of the day that where they are is fortunate they have a huge parking area. There's certain times of the day where that parking area is almost packed to the maximum.
Yeah, I know.
And with limited area, I'm just concerned that you're going to have some traffic jams there.
Completely. From our experience and from my wife's experience of being a director of a preschool for 6 years and within the industry for 10, from our experience of actually going to other Lakeland preschools, sitting outside from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then returning back in the afternoon to see drop off. There are a lot of existing grandfathered preschools that have nowhere near the requirement of parking, and that's not saying I'm not trying to compare because I know it's different, but I bring this up to say that they don't have parking issues with lower required ratios because they're grandfathered in. From our experience, personal as well as of us actually doing parking counts at other schools, this parking is adequate. It meets the land development code. There's a reason why that they have those ratios required for us, and so we do not anticipate the need of any overflow occurring. If for whatever reason it does, then we will do everything we can to mitigate it, but we do not see that being a possibility whatsoever.
Well, it's something I'd like to see you address, at least so we have some standards to go by if we do reach that point where it becomes overloaded.
100%.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Phillips and staff will continue to work with the applicant to obtain clarification on those items. And as well, when we bring a recommendation back to you next month, we will have specific conditions addressing those particular items. And then there will also be the binding site plan that will accompany the recommendation.
Madam Chair, Ms. Knight has her hand raised.
Yes, McKnight.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. On the west side, lot 10, block 11, you said the homeowner is right there. Have you spoken with them and how do they feel about it?
I haven't been able to speak to them personally. I know that the existing site plan currently has actually a driveway that goes through the entire yard. So the existing site plan, the existing site for its previous use, the two wings of the building are carports, and it used to be an assisted living facility. And so they actually had a driveway where our entrance and exit are their driveways, but it actually went all the way up through the perimeter around the building under those carports and then exited through the backyard. So, we won't, and we're trading off children playing in the backyard for cars driving. What they were accustomed to was cars driving down their perimeter line. But we won't have that anymore. I haven't been able to speak with them personally, that exact owner. I'm not quite sure if they're renters or owners, but we will find out.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, if nothing else, we will see you next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Yes.
Madam Chair, we had a caller join the meeting.
Okay.
Let me just check. Caller, if you just joined the meeting, could you please state your name and address?
Yes, this is Stephen Smith Sr., 6856 Corral Court, Sarasota, Florida. I was on the call but got kicked off.
Okay, are you calling in for this item or a different item?
item 4, which I had called in at about 8 this morning. So,
Okay. Oh, well, we have you checked in. Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez, if I could ask one quick question to Mr. Palmer. So just to clarify, the general meeting, due to the virtual aspect of this initial public hearing, there will be an additional public hearing at the general meeting. Is that correct? Am I under the right impression?
That is correct. But it's anticipated that final action will occur, that will occur to forward or not forward this to the city commission after the May meeting.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else?
No other callers, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will see this again next month. Thank you. With that, we'll go to item number 3. And yes, we had a little hiccup in there where a few people went away and came back, and it's going okay. We're doing good. Okay, so thank you. Okay, Mr. Higgins, please.
Item number 3, major modification of plan unit development zoning to allow 240 multifamily units in lieu of previously approved office and commercial entitlements on approximately 17.79 acres located north of Town Center Drive and west of Hardin Boulevard. The owners are Grumman Company Incorporated. The applicant is Tim Campbell. This was continued from a previous meeting.
Good morning. For the record, Todd Bargo with Community Economic Development. Yeah, we received another email from the applicant asking for a 1-month delay. This case has been on and off the agenda for a good while, but we in the email, the applicant stated they feel confident that it would be ready to move forward in May.
Okay, thank you, Todd. So, may I have a motion for a continuance?
Move to continue.
And second. And we're going to go through the voting once again. Mr. Ronald Roberts.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Phillipson.
Aye.
Ms. Luns.
Aye.
Mr. Higgins.
Aye.
Mr. Snyder.
Aye.
Ms. Knight.
Aye.
And I as well, Stephanie Franklin. Thank you very much. And we shall now move to item number 4.
Item number 4, change in zoning from multifamily to planned unit development to allow up to 24 multifamily dwelling units on approximately 1.3 acres located at 108 Lake Hunter Drive. The owner is Anthony Jola, applicants JSK Consulting.
Good morning again. For the record, Joshua Cheney with Community Economic Development. The subject property is located at 108 Lake Hunter Drive. This is approximately 175 feet east of the intersection of Lake Hunter Drive and Unitah Avenue, as you can see on the map there. Next slide, please. The proposed project site is approximately 1.3 acres in size with residential medium future land use, as well as recreation future land use and MF12 multifamily zoning. The applicant is JSK Consulting on behalf of Mr. Anthony Galage, and the request is to apply for PUD zoning that allows for 24 multifamily dwelling units in the form of 2 3-story buildings there on the, I know it's a little bit washed out, it's on the southern portion of the site. Each building will contain 12 dwelling units. This project will also include other amenities such as a common area for the residents, pedestrian walkways, bike racks. There will also be a bus shelter pad there on the project's property, not in the public right-of-way, as I understand it, directly adjacent to the public right-of-way. And with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, are you there?
I'm here. Yes, this is Matthew. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning?
Good morning.
Good morning. This is a very exciting technology, and I'm thankful to be a part of this meeting here this morning. Just wanted to quickly introduce myself. I'm Matthew Johnson with JSK Consulting. My address is shown there as 5904 Hillside Heights in Lakeland, Florida at 33812. And I'm also joined by the developer this morning, Stephen Smith, who's also on the call with us. So I just wanted to quickly go through the slides and show you our site plan, which is on our next slide. Again, we've been working very hard with the staff to develop a site plan that has a lot of amenities and that's going to be a good asset, to the area. And we think we've accomplished that. I just want to go over a couple of items on our site plan. As mentioned, it's on the south side of the lake. Our buildings, we've adjusted our buildings to the greatest extent possible so that they all have a lake view. And a few of the amenities that we've incorporated into our plan along the frontage of our site there, we have a knee wall, a brick knee wall that's going to have some landscaping in front of it. It's only a couple feet high. And we also are incorporating a water feature into our stormwater pond there on the west side of the property. We've tried to incorporate a lot of green space and open space between the parking lot and the buildings so that we have some opportunity to include some landscaping areas. We have a community area, as mentioned by the staff here, that's kind of in the middle of the site. And then lastly, again, our entry feature, we do have a sign that's going to be incorporated into our knee wall feature. And we are also providing a shelter, a bus shelter, that is also going to be incorporated in some fashion with our knee wall. And next slide, please. Our next slide. This is kind of a color rendering viewpoint. If you're looking south from the lake, this is kind of color rendering we have of the building and elevation. And this is just an artistic representation. Then moving into our next slide, I'll let the contractor and developer Stephen mention some of the architectural features we're incorporating into the buildings themselves.
And that was Mr. Smith was on the line?
Yes, ma'am. I believe Mr. Smith is on the line.
Okay.
Yes, I have Mr. Smith Sr. and Jr.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, this is Stephen David Smith Jr. What we're trying to do and accomplish here in working with the city of Lakeland and with our client is that we want to do an upper end product for young professionals and families. So we're coming in with a significantly different expectation of what we want to show. So we're looking at things like hardy plank siding. We're looking at horizontal siding, board and batten siding on the vertical. And we've done things like put in slider French doors, which will be giving a nice view of the downtown Lakeland area. And of course, with our site location, we're trying to be very pedestrian friendly because it's within a certain walking distance or biking distance of downtown Lakeland. If you look, we've done things such as small overhangs over the doors, railings on the front, and this is certainly not what you would see in a typical apartment. Including the size of the apartments, instead of 850 to 900 square feet, we are a little over 1,250 square feet with a 2-bedroom unit. This basically got significant open space, and we feel like it's very, very unique, and we're looking forward to bringing that to Lakeland.
Mr. Smith, could you please give us your address for the record?
Yes, my address is 6856 Corral, that's Corral Court in Sarasota, Florida.
Thank you.
Questions from board members?
Ms. Knight, raise your hand.
Ms. Knight, please.
I have a question. Is there something presently on that parcel, and is there something going to be displaced? And can you give me the approximate rental amount that it would take for these units?
Yes, there was a single-family home there some time ago. How far back, I do not know. That was removed. The only thing left on the site is a partial pad. As far as rental rates, it would certainly be in excess of $1,000 per month. We're going to try to keep it as close to that 1,000 to 1,100 range as possible to make it affordable to people that are also looking for a very secure apartment area in a great location. When we first came to Lakeland, we were just totally impressed with everything that's being accomplished there. And my client wants to very much be a part of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. In addition, I believe that house was removed approximately 7 years ago. It was an older, smaller home.
That is my understanding. I don't know the time frame.
It's about somewhere in there. Don't quote me exactly, but it's been a little while, and it's right next to Magnolia Point condominiums. They're at the corner of Lake Hunter.
Yes, there's some older duplexes to our, let's see, that'd be north, south. It would be to our west side.
Yes.
And then, of course, further down, you've got the Presbyterian Center as well.
Yes. Do you have any other units here in Lakeland, or is this your first time coming to Lakeland?
First time coming to Lakeland, and it has been very inspiring. I'm from a small town originally in North Carolina called Rocky Mount, and y'all done a much better job than we did, to give you just an honest opinion.
Why, thank you. You hear that, staff? You got kudos today. That's wonderful. Okay, any other questions, please?
Madam Chair, Mr. Phillipson has his hand raised.
Mr. Phillipson, please.
Yes. Have there been any traffic studies done at this point as far as the increase in traffic along Lake Hunter Drive with these apartments?
Mr. Phillips, there has not as yet, but that would certainly be part as we move forward. And that will be done as part of our due diligence and being able to proceed with permitting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, Ms. Lunds had her hand raised.
I'm sorry, making note. Ms. Lunds, please.
I noticed that one of the buildings is quite close to the property line. Has there been any discussion of landscape buffers from the adjoining property?
Yes, to a degree. We certainly want to create a secure area. As far as buffers, we are tight on property lines. The biggest part of that was dictated to us when we had our soil scientists come in and do our soil test. It did push us back on the property. We had a lot of unsuitable soils where we were pushed to put one of the buildings at the southern boundary and the other one at the east boundary.
And I believe extra soil has been built up on this area over the past year and a half, 2 years. Is that correct?
Did you say, has soil been put in and built up? Is that your question?
I believe that soil was put in. Am I incorrect or correct?
I believe you're incorrect. There's 2 lots over back towards the main thoroughfare there where a gentleman has been filling in for the entire time I've been involved in this project now, which is well over a year.
Okay. Any other question?
Madam Chair, I'm unmuting Mr. Smith Senior, I believe, in case he has anything to say.
I'm in agreement with everything.
That was short and simple and sweet. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyone else from the board? Okay. Do we have anyone from the public?
No other calls from the public.
Okay. That being, we'll see you again next month. We thank you very much for your time with us today. It looks like some very nice looking buildings coming our way. We always like to see more affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think Joshua had something to say.
Yes, just briefly. If you go back to the staff presentation, we do have a couple of slides. They are recent photos. You can see what the site looks like presently. Next slide, please. That was an example of a transit pen. There we go. Go back one. So as you can see, we have the sign posted there, and that is what the site currently looks like.
Okay. All right.
Matt is raising his hand.
Yes.
And just to clarify for the record, the house that was there previously was demolished in 2016, so 4 years ago.
Okay. Thank you. Very good. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Mr. Higgins, we shall proceed on now. Item number 5, please.
Item 5, change in zoning for highway commercial and limited development to planned unit development to allow a convenience store with motor vehicle fuel sales on property located at the southeast corner of New Tampa Highway and Airport Road. The owner is 4250 New Tampa Highway Land Trust. The applicant is Kendra McBee.
Thank you.
Good morning, board members. For the record, Philip Scarce with Community and Economic Development. Sloan Engineering, Kendra McBee, representing Sloan Engineering, request a rezoning on 5.78 acres from C2 commercial, highway commercial and LD limited development to a planned unit development to allow a convenience store with motor vehicle fuel sales located at the southeast corner of New Tampa Highway and Airport Road. The future land use is Business Park Center, which allows commercial support uses within that district. The applicant is proposing a 4,560 square foot convenience store, 7-Eleven, with 8 multiple product dispensers for a total of 16 refueling stations. Also included in the request are 3 high-speed diesel lanes. If you go to the next slide, please. Just talk about the surrounding uses. To the north, there's a similar convenience store. Actually, you can, sorry, this is the proposed site plan that the applicant proposes. Christelle, if you can just go back one, I apologize.
No problem.
Thank you, appreciate it. To the north, there's a commercial similar convenience store. There's also a Best Western under construction right now. To the south, the land is in unincorporated Polk County. To the east, there is commercial and residential uses. Right where that C2 is in that aerial, that was a used car lot. Most recently, I think it's not in business at this time. And in that neighborhood to the south of that south of where there is, where that greenish yellow line is, there's some residential uses there. And to the west, across Airport Road, it's undeveloped. It's also zone limited development. There's some wetlands in this area, and there's some wetlands on site as well. So Christophe, you go to the next slide, please. So this is the overall site plan that the applicant proposes. There's an access point on Airport Road, which we'll discuss here in a few minutes. There's also an access point on US 92. At the southeast corner of the site, you see there's some high-speed diesel lanes. There's 3 high-speed diesel lanes. And then fronting along US 92, there's the fueling stations. The next few slides are just some Google Earth street views of the area. Thank you, Christelle. Next one. Thank you. This is looking into the site as you're driving west on US 92. Just off to that site there. No, go, Christelle. You can go to this next slide. There we go. We'll just leave it at that for now. And the proposed PUD zoning, as the purpose of the PUD is twofold. There's only a small portion of the site that's zoned C2. The majority of the site is limited development. You can see on the southwest corner of the site plan, there's some wetlands designated on this site plan that we're planning around and through, unfortunately. Also, the proposed site is classified as a major fuel sales, which requires a conditional use in the C2 zoning. So the PUD was a much cleaner option to rezone and then do a conditional use permit separately. So that's one reason why we're doing the PUD instead of a zoning and a separate conditional use permit. When you have in a recent land development code amendment in the C2, any convenience store with gas pumps of 6 or more requires, or 12 fueling station requires a conditional use permit. So that's one reason why we're doing the PUD. And just, I will, before I leave it over to the applicants, I just want to mention that we are currently looking at this with the transportation analysis the applicant has performed. We are coordinating with FDOT regarding the access points regarding both access points, actually. In particular, we're still working through the issues of the Airport Road access point. The applicant is updating their transportation analysis. We are looking at the alignment of this access point because you have CSX rail. You also have the on-site wetland. What they're trying to reduce as much impacts of that wetland as possible. So it's just all coming down to where is that the best option for that access point onto Airport Road. With that, I will hand it over to the applicant, and then Chuck can also chime in as far as any transportation issues as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip.
Is Chuck saying something first, or are we going to the applicants?
I think Chad Brooker was on the line.
Yes.
You go straight to the applicant.
Okay, I have Chad Booker. Go ahead, Chad.
Hey, good morning. This is Chad over at Sloan Engineering Group. I am representing the developer here for this project. Philip did a pretty good job of explaining, what we're doing and why we're going for a PD or PUD. I'll try not to repeat too much what he said, but just a brief overview. We are proposing the 7-Eleven gas station here at the southeast intersection of US 19 Airport Road. The main reason we're going for the PUD instead of the rezoning was that the PUD more fits the major fuel sales as described by the Land Development Code. If we went the C2 route, it would require some additional conditional use permits and whatnot. So we don't have too many deviations from the Land Development Code. I think the only one that was not mentioned is the setback of the fuel to the eastern property line, the canopy. We're working with city staff to increase that distance to make sure that we either meet the code or mitigate for it appropriately. As he said, the main unknowns right now that we have are the transportation and really the off-site improvements. We've met as recently as last week with city staff and the DOT to discuss some of these improvements. We know there will be proposed turn lanes. We know that the DOT is coming in with a project on US 92 in the somewhat near future. So we are working with everybody to make sure that we accommodate all of this and to make sure that what we're proposing is acceptable with everybody. So I will say he did mention the wetlands there for the driveway onto Airport Road. We are ideally trying to impact that as least as possible. That is an Army Corps jurisdictional wetland, so we're trying to maintain an impact of less than half an acre. Like I said, but it's kind of conditional with what kind of improvements we're going to have to do on Airport Road. So we're working through that with everybody. We don't have the answers for all of this right now. But other than that, we pretty much meet everything else per the Land Development Code for the C2 zoning, and the PUD request is simply to allow this type of usage on the property.
Mr. Brooker, can you please state your address for the record?
Sorry. 150 South Woodlawn Avenue, Bartow, Florida, 33831.
Thank you.
And just briefly, board members, the canopy provision he mentioned in the Land Development Code requires fuel canopies to be set back 30 feet from the property lines. The high-speed diesel canopy is proposed at 15 feet along that eastern boundary line. And staff is acceptable with that request for 15 feet for that canopy. It's not really impacting any residential units there. The residential's further south.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I also have Sam Medina for this item. Sam, if you wish to speak, please state your name and address before addressing the board.
Good morning, Sam Medina with Sloan Engineering Group. Address is 150 South Woodlawn Avenue in Bartow, 33830. Again, Chad summed it up pretty good there. I don't have anything to add. Thank you, staff, for putting this call together. It's been pretty smooth here so far, so kudos to you guys.
Thank you, Sam. Okay. Anyone from the board?
Madam Chair, I was just going to jump in real quick and explain some of the discussion points we've been having between the applicant and the Department of Transportation.
Sure.
Morning.
Oh, good morning.
For the record, Chuck Barbie, Community Economic Development. We had a kind of a pre-application meeting follow-up last Thursday. One of the big things that the applicant is seeking is a full access point on Airport Road. And so there's some additional analysis that they'll be performing to look at the feasibility of doing that. One of the things we discussed was shifting the driveway as far south as we can. Of course, that impacts the wetland to a greater detail. It also gets closer to the CSX right-of-way. And so there's some issues that we need to work through to at least ensure that if the driveway can move south, that it can with the least impact possible. There's some additional analysis that DOT is also requesting related to the northbound left turn lane at Airport Road and New Tampa Highway to make sure that everything can be accommodated when the project is built out. The driveway access on US 92 is going to be restricted to right in, right out only. That's been a requirement that's already been laid out by DOT. In terms of the future project on the US 92 corridor, there's been a design phase has begun for a 4-lane project all the way from Wabash Avenue to County Line Road. Most of the right-of-way is programmed within the next 5 years of the DOT work program. At this point, construction is not funded within the next 5 years, and the construction estimate, latest that we've seen, is in excess of $50 million. So we expect that it will be quite some time before construction will be funded and then actually implemented on some or all of the corridor.
Madam Chair, I believe I saw Mr. Robertson raise his hand earlier.
Mr. Roberts, please.
My question has been answered. Thank you.
Okay. Others from the board.
I see Ms. Knight's hand.
Ms. Knight, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chuck, sorry. You mentioned a full access driveway on Airport Road. Can you describe for me what the difference is between a full access and a partial access, if there is a difference?
What we typically, the most typical is either a full access that allows all turning movements or a right in, right out, where you would typically have a concrete separator in the road that restricts access primarily left into a site and left out of the site. Those are typically the driveway movements that create most conflict on the adjacent road system. And so the issue with Airport Road would be really two things. How far do you need to get the driveway from the US 92 intersection to be able to accommodate a needed southbound left turn lane into the site? With the project traffic, you'll need a way for them to get out of the through lane on southbound Airport Road. And so you need to be able to do that and not impact or not have a negative impact on the opposing northbound left on Airport Road approaching the US 92 intersection. So there's a limited space in which those turning movements have to occur. And so that's the big thing that DOT is going to be looking at is how does that lane configuration look and can it fit within right of way? Occasionally, and we haven't talked about this at this location, but occasionally you have what we call a right in, right out, left in type setup, where you can have less coming into the site off the public road system, but not out of the site. I think that the area that we're looking at here is really too limited to be able to do that. You know, and in talking with the applicant, you know, for them, getting traffic into the site is coming from the east to the west is going to be very important. And with US 92 only being a 2-lane roadway, at this point, the options of being able to accommodate U-turns at US 92 and Airport Road are very limited. So the full access is going to be important for them in terms of providing access into the property. We just want to make sure that it can be accommodated and accommodated in a safe and efficient manner. And so that's what a lot of what we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks is trying to see if that's possible. And if so, where that driveway would need to shift to be able to make that a full movement access point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Someone else? No. Okay. Anyone from the audience?
No calls, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. We will look forward to seeing this next month. Seems like there's a pretty large wetlands on that, so and looking at the fuel trucks coming in and out and making sure we're not doing any U-turns for them. So we'll see how this comes out. Happy to see it though. We look forward to seeing you gentlemen next month, okay?
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, now we're going to go to our general meeting. review of the minutes. Were there any notations of corrections for the minutes? If there's none noted, may I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
And second?
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we should go. Mr. Ronald Roberts,
Aye.
Mr. Phillipson,
Aye.
Ms. Lyons,
Aye.
Mr. Higgins,
Aye.
Mr. Schneider,
Aye.
Ms. Knight,
Aye.
and I will aye myself. Thank you very much. Okay, we shall get ready for item number 7 next.
Item number 7, annexation, a future land use designation of office center and the application of planned unit development zoning concurrent with the city initiated request to apply a suburban special purpose context district designation to allow a 30,000 square foot freestanding emergency room, a 20,000 square foot ambulatory surgical center, 240,000 square foot of medical office uses, and a maximum building height of 150 feet on approximately 79.6 acres located south of SR State Route 570, Polk Parkway, east of Lakeland Highlands Road and north of Winter Lake Extension Road. The owner is E. Edward and Marianne Holloway. Applicants Kathy Hadaway, Paulus and Bennett, LLC.
Thank you.
Good morning again. For the record, Matthew Lyons, Community and Economic Development. This request will be presented in 2 parts today. The first half will be the annexation and the large-scale land use amendment, which I'll do. The second half will be the zoning portion, which I believe Philip Scarce and Chuck Barbie will address. I'll primarily go through the non-transportation portion of the land use, and Chuck Barbie can chime in with the transportation portion here. Basically, the land use here, the subject property is presently located in unincorporated Polk County with the county feature land use designation of L1, residential L1. And the applicant is requesting the annexation and OC office center feature land use to allow for the future development of the property as a hospital campus. Concurrent with the request, the application is also requesting the application of PUD, plan unit development zoning, along with a city initiative request to apply a suburban special purpose context subdistrict to the property. The approved media plans include the development of a 30,000 square foot freestanding emergency room with a helipad and 60,000 square feet of medical office uses. Long term, over the next 20 years, plans include a 730,000 square foot hospital with a maximum of 360 beds, a 20,000 square foot ambulatory surgical center, 180,000 square feet of additional medical office uses, a 150 room hotel, and 20,000 square feet of supporting retail uses. In terms of land use for services, water, wastewater, and solid waste, the subject property is located within the survey area of the city's Glendale wastewater treatment plant. At the time of site plan review, a concurrency review will be required to verify capacity and address any improvements necessary to support the actual site development proposal. Parks and recreation facilities, because it's a non-residential use, the proposed OC land use designation will not generate a significant demand for parks and other recreational uses. In terms of stormwater management drainage, the property is generally well drained with soils in the uplands consisting primarily of nickel sand with a slope from 1 to 5.1 to 5%. This type of soil, generally found in broad uplands and knolls, is classified as excessively drained with a high water table typically located around 80 inches. Overlying areas such as the western area to the west and a smaller wetland to the northeast of the site are colloidal clays that are a broad product of phosphate mining when the area was mined back in the 50s and 60s. Generally, these types of soils are classified as poorly drained with a high water table, typically around 24 inches. Any drainage improvements associated with development of the site must be consistent with the infrastructure element and all applicable goals in the comprehensive plan. Permits from the water management district regarding the applicant's proposed stormwater management system will be required at the commencement of any construction activities. In terms of fire, EMS, and law enforcement nearby, the closest single fire station, station number 5, is located approximately 1 mile to the north at the southwest corner of Lakeland Highland Roads and Glendale Street. The estimated response time from that side is approximately 2 to 3 minute drive, which is well within the parameters for the providing those services there. While Polk County does provide EMS to municipal and county residents, the single fire services also offer advanced life support capabilities virtually at all stations to provide first response to incidents. Because the EMS station in county, Polk County Station 35, is about 1.5 miles to the east at 3205 Winter Lake Road, estimated to be approximately a 5-minute drive from the entrance to the project site there. The police service is available. However, there are no substations within proximity to the subject property. In terms of environmental constraints, wetlands and floodplains, the subject property does contain one large wetland, approximately 8.16 acres in area, located on the western side of the subject property. According to the applicant's land use application, this wetland is permanently covered in nuisance and exotic species. And while the applicant has no immediate plans for development, they are requesting the application of OC land use to